The Chronicles of Narnia has always been one of the most important fantasy stories ever written because it wasn't just another adventure about magic and mythical creatures. C.S. Lewis built an entire world that mixed imagination with deeper themes about courage, sacrifice, hope, and redemption. Even though the books have always sparked debates because of their obvious Christian symbolism, that never stopped them from becoming classics. The biblical parallels were impossible to ignore. The Pevensie children were introduced as the sons of Adam and daughters of Eve, while Aslan's sacrifice clearly reflected the story of Jesus' crucifixion. The 7 books created a massive journey filled with creation, destruction, rebirth, war, and hope. Every novel introduced fresh adventures while expanding the world instead of repeating the same formula over and over. Unlike a bunch of fantasy series that stay focused on one group of heroes from beginning to end, Narnia constantly shifted perspectives. The Pevensie siblings remained important throughout the series, but readers also spent time with completely new characters like Prince Caspian, Digory, Eustace, Jill, and many others. That decision made Narnia feel like an actual living world instead of a story that only existed whenever the main characters showed up. Although the books were written for younger readers, they never treated children like they couldn't handle difficult subjects. Lewis trusted his audience with themes involving betrayal, death, temptation, forgiveness, responsibility, and personal sacrifice. Because of that, every victory actually felt earned. The heroes didn't simply defeat evil because they were destined to win. They struggled, made mistakes, learned painful lessons, and grew stronger. Aslan's presence always reminded everyone that doing the right thing often came with a price. It may not have featured stakes as massive as stopping Sauron from conquering Middle-earth, but Narnia still delivered epic fantasy battles that carried real emotional weight. But here's where the brutal criticism begins. For years, Hollywood completely wasted one of fantasy's greatest franchises. It's honestly frustrating because Narnia had every ingredient needed to become something as huge as Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings, yet studios somehow kept dropping the ball. Instead of building a long-term cinematic universe with patience and consistency, the franchise was handled in pieces until audiences slowly lost interest. The material was never the problem. The people adapting it simply failed to understand how valuable it actually was. Meanwhile, both Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings continue finding new life years after their original stories ended. Harry Potter is returning with a television reboot that's expected to follow the books much more closely. Lord of the Rings keeps expanding with new films exploring different corners of Middle-earth. Those franchises continue receiving investment because studios understand that fantasy worlds can keep attracting generations of fans. But Narnia never received that same commitment. It was left behind while everyone else kept moving forward. That could finally change, because Netflix is giving the franchise another opportunity, and this might be the chance Narnia has been waiting for all these years. More importantly, Netflix isn't treating this like another streaming project that disappears after one weekend. The company is pushing toward a proper theatrical strategy, which completely changes the conversation. That's exactly what this franchise deserves. Netflix has made this mistake before. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein received only a limited theatrical rollout despite having enormous potential. Even K-pop Demon Hunters barely spent any meaningful time in theaters despite becoming one of Netflix's biggest animated releases. Those were missed opportunities because audiences still love watching large-scale movies on the biggest screen possible. Streaming may be convenient, but some stories deserve a theatrical experience. Thankfully, Netflix doesn't appear ready to repeat that mistake with Narnia. The decision to give the film an IMAX release sends a clear message that this isn't just another title filling the streaming library. They're treating it like a genuine blockbuster. That's exactly the kind of confidence this franchise has needed from the very beginning. The focus should be on telling the complete story with patience instead of chasing short-term success. The upcoming adaptation begins with The Magician's Nephew, which is actually a smart creative decision. Even though it wasn't the first published Narnia novel, it's the chronological beginning of the entire mythology. The story explains how Narnia came into existence, introduces young Digory Kirk and Polly Plummer, explores different magical worlds, and finally reveals Aslan creating Narnia itself through song. That's one of fantasy literature's most beautiful moments, and it has never been adapted for the screen before. Greta Gerwig is writing and directing the film, and her passion for the material seems completely genuine. She has spoken many times about how much Lewis's stories influenced her imagination while growing up. According to Gerwig, reading The Magician's Nephew as a child left a lasting impact on her because the idea of a lion singing an entire universe into existence stayed with her throughout her life. She believes Narnia taught her that ordinary people could discover extraordinary adventures hiding in unexpected places. That emotional connection matters because fans deserve filmmakers who actually understand why these stories have survived for generations instead of directors chasing another paycheck. The cast is also packed with talent. David McKenna, Beatrice Campbell, Emma Mackey, Carey Mulligan, Kobna Holdbrook-Smith, Daniel Craig, and Meryl Streep will all appear in The Magician's Nephew. That's an impressive lineup, and it suggests Netflix is investing serious resources into making this adaptation feel important, rather than simply filling content quotas. The release schedule has changed, though. The movie has officially been delayed until 2027, arriving in theaters on February 12th before making its Netflix debut on April 2nd, 2027. While delays usually disappoint fans, rushing visual effects or production would have been far worse. Fantasy films depend heavily on world building, creatures, environments, and visual spectacle, so extra development time can actually improve the final product. The C.S. Lewis Company also expressed strong confidence in Gerwig's vision despite the delay. They praised her love for Lewis's world and believe this adaptation captures the joy, wonder, and emotional heart that made the original story so beloved. Their goal is introducing Narnia to longtime readers while also welcoming an entirely new generation that has never experienced these books before. If Netflix fully commits to the books, invests in consistent long-term storytelling, and allows Greta Gerwig's creative vision to flourish, Narnia could finally stand beside Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings instead of living in their shadow. The foundation has always been there. The source material has never been the issue. The real challenge has always been whether studios believed in it enough to give it the respect it earned decades ago. After waiting this long, Narnia finally has another chance. The IMAX release shows confidence, Gerwig's passion brings hope, the cast looks promising, and now everything depends on execution. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.